Chapter 6. Conspirators without a plan. 5 very nervous people were waiting for Cicero at Antium. There he found them, 5 people with no plan. No plan, no order, no reason among them, he thought with disgust, and no idea at all of how to keep the ship of state from going to pieces. First of all, there was Brutus, a very serious man in his late 30s, who seemed to guard his honor and virtue with a rigid dignity. It was plain to see that he carefully weighed his every act, and hoped never to be found guilty of evil. The second was Portia, the good wife of Brutus. The third was Brutus's mother, Servilia, a spirited woman, obviously popular with men. In her younger days, it was said, she had been so friendly with Caesar that he had practically looked upon Brutus as his own son. According to gossip, that was the reason for his keen grief and shock when Brutus stabbed him. The fourth was Tertia, a half-sister to Brutus, who was now married to Cassius. Cassius himself made the fifth, a lean, hungry man with a sharp nose and a sharp tongue. Having formed the original plot against Caesar and enlisted Brutus in it, he was now annoyed at Brutus for not letting them kill Mark Antony too, while their daggers were still out. Brutus tried to conceal his righteous indignation. He had behaved only as he had believed his great ancestor would have behaved, that noble Brutus of old, whose statue stood on the Capitoline. Cassius had no ancestor to worry him, thank Jupiter, and he didn't spare his critical remarks about lost opportunities. Cicero answered that they should all let bygones be bygones. Then, in the next breath, he offered his own ideas of mistakes that had been made. After Caesar was killed, he said, you two, Brutus and Cassius, should have taken charge. Nonsense, exclaimed Servilia, cutting him short. Brutus said flatly that they had no wish to become dictators. If they had seized control, they would be guilty of just what they had killed Caesar for. Their part was over when they got rid of the tyrant and returned the republic to the people of Rome. Now it was up to the Senate to take charge again. Not that he wished to shirk his duty, he hastened to add. He would gladly go back to Rome if Cicero thought that best. Cicero did not think best, not at all. It would not be safe. True, he had persuaded the Senate to pass an Act of Oblivion the day after Caesar's death. In other words, for the sake of peace, they had agreed to forget what the conspirators had done. But now, who could tell when Antony would choose to ignore that decree or have it set aside? Portia trembled at the thought and spoke of how near the mob had come to burning down their house after Caesar's funeral. Servilia thought Brutus and Cassius ought to go abroad as grain commissioners. She had taken pains to have Antony, who was still her friend, get those jobs assigned to him. They should be glad of a genuine excuse to leave Italy and avoid civil war, if they could. Brutus admitted he would be willing to go anywhere to avoid war, though he would hardly choose to be a grain commissioner. Choose it, sneered Cassius. It was an insult. Judges deserved a better assignment than that. He and Brutus had been praetors, or judges, for the year. Would they now take a job rustling grain to feed that common mob of Rome, whom Caesar had toadied to? Not by Jove's thunderbolt, he wouldn't. What then will you do? Inquired Cicero. Go to Greece, perhaps, somewhere, anywhere, Cassius was thinking, anywhere that he could get hold of troops and money, in case the friends of Caesar should organize for war. Brutus was inclined to go to Asia when the gathering broke up. As for Cicero, he returned home, disgusted with the journey, in despair over the poor old rickety ship of state, and pleased with nothing at all, as he wrote to Atticus, except the fact that he had not let his dear Brutus leave Italy without seeing him again. It was not long before Brutus and Cassius set forth from Italy, but as it turned out, they switched their destinations. Cassius for Asia and Palestine. Brutus went to Greece. From the port, he sent a parting letter to Antony, who probably laughed aloud as he read it. "Do not flatter yourself that you have frightened us," wrote Brutus. "Fear is beneath our character. We hate war. Nothing can drag us into it."